introduction here of course, this is a copy from a collection of, from an anthology, really. It's an anthology, including many plays, of course. Here we have the page numbering, so you can see at the top. And this is the copy. Actually, I made this copy myself. I copied it and I put it here as a PDF for you, because I've been teaching this course for some years now. So yeah, I want you just maybe to pay attention to, maybe if I can zoom it a little bit here. You can see the introduction here. Really, it's talking about the story of the play, the story, or really the myth. It's about King Oedipus and this mythology. Now, there's one thing, please, boys and girls, I want you to make sure about it. Really, this is mythology. We are dealing here with mythology. Don't think of it as real. Don't think of it as reality. There's nothing to do with reality. When you talk about mythology, means you have to accept at the moment, you have to accept the way things are done or are said or are, etc., because you say, well, this is mythology. Because in mythology, there are so many things which are unbelievable and unacceptable. And the most important fact here about mythology is about the idea of gods, about the question of gods and the multiplicity of gods. You have to believe, at least now we have to accept that this is how in those days, in the pre-Christian time, people really believed in this idea of, that the question of, because it was paganism, there was no this what we call today, for example, or later on when we have the main, if you like, four, if you like, orthodox religions like Judaism and Christianity and Islam and so on. So the question really here is, we have to accept at the moment, or to think back how people believed in this idea of multiplicity of gods. And here this play is actually within this time of the belief in the multiplicity of gods, that there is a God or gods or the God of gods and so on. And the supreme power here, of course, it was maybe the governor of all those, or the God of gods, if you like, was called Zeus, and his wife, Mnemosyne or whatever. Now, the question here, even when you say his wife, you say, what? A god and his wife? What are you talking about, doctor? Well, yeah, because this is how they believe, and that they believe in this question of gods and so on. So please don't ever think and put it in your mind that this is something to do with us or like modern time, or to do with Islam or anything. So that's why in writing here, I want to draw your attention all the time when we say gods here with small g, not capital G, because in capital G we have only one God when you write it with capital letter. Okay? So here the play, Oedipus the king, it's about Oedipus, this king called Oedipus, and about this mythology that he was told that his son is going to kill him and to marry his mother. The whole idea about that, of course, is the story about it. And it's written by, as you can see, the main figure here, the main really big name is Sophocles. He's an amazing, great, really, tragedian, in Greek, of course, literature. In those days, of course, Greek, really the classics, for so many years for Europeans, you know, were the Greek, really, the Greek people. Of course, starting from, you know, Plato, Aristotle, you know, Aristocrates, and so many people, or Socrates, Sophocles, Euripides, Aeschylus, and so on and so forth, and Homer, and so on. So you have so many big, absolutely big names in literature, in drama, poetry, mainly drama and poetry, really, because these people were mostly poets and dramatists, and it was whole, nearly whole oral tradition. It was oral, not written. So that's why, you know, even like in Arabic literature, in our Arabic literature, or our pre-Islamic literature was oral as well, was oral, not written. And all these, what was called, you know, what we call it here, really like the epics in Arabic literature or Arabic poetry, Imru al-Qais and, you know, Zuhair ibn Abi Sulma, and so many other big names in Arabic literature. Also, they were not writing in writing. It was all oral, in the oral tradition. They recite orally and they memorize, you know, like that. So the play here is located within this atmosphere of drama, the poetry and drama and oral tradition. Poetry, drama, and oral tradition. And, as I said, really mythology, because here you have to believe in this question of, in those days, that's what they said. In those days, that's what they believed, and so on. So you shall see a lot of these things. And sometimes really later on we shall say, you know, in Greek mythology, for us, really these gods are funny and they are crazy to some extent, the way they behave. Yeah, question?
Doctor, is the Epic of Gilgamesh is considered a mythology?
Oh yeah, of course. Of course.
Yeah, just making sure.
Of course, Gilgamesh is a mythology. It's the first, actually. Thank you, Faiz, is it? Yeah, thank you, Faiz, for this. Absolutely, absolutely. Even Gilgamesh was the first mythology, and Greek people actually took a lot from Gilgamesh, and took a lot from, you know, the Babylonian, because Gilgamesh was a king of Babylon and Babylonia and Babylon, and, you know, Mesopotamia and Syria and Iraq. These areas really were, you know, the center of the Babylonian and Akkadian or Assyrian and so on, you know. Yeah, of course. Thank you, Faiz, for this. It was absolutely oral and mythological, because it's all mythology, you know. And sometimes, you know, people like to make mythology, and we mythologize things. You know, we mythologize things. If we don't have even a mythology, really people like to have mythologies, which is really funny and amazing, but that's true. Societies always would love to have big names and big things to go back and say, yeah, we had this, yeah, we had this, and so on. And even, as I said, we start to mythologize. Like, for example, in Syria, for example, I'm just giving an example, you know, like Queen Zenobia in Syria, we say the queen of Palmyra. And when you look in Palmyra today, yeah, we have these ruins which are really real. We can see them, and we can see the palaces and the theaters built by the Romans or the pre-Romans, or at those times where, I don't know if we call them the Arabs or we call them the Assyrians or Sumerians, or I don't know what we call them. But yeah, they were real people, you know, like the pharaohs, Al-Fara'ina, they were there. I mean, you know, this is in real life. But of course, I'm saying here, we mythologize, means we make them so sort of, you know, give them big halos and big names and whatever. The story here is something like that. We have to accept at the moment, for the time being, we have to accept what's going on here in the play. That is how our friend Oedipus is told that his father or his whatever. The question is really sometimes amazing and unbelievable. And as I said, the action, the way the characters, and I'm saying not the characters, I'm saying gods behave in a funny way, and sometimes we say in an ugly way, and even worse than us human beings. And we say, well, yeah, we say, okay, because in those days, that's what the situation. But and they did behave like that. But you see, in our situation, for example, we say, we don't believe that. How can gods do this? Or God, because in the first place, we don't believe in gods. There's no gods, we have one God, because in our own modern time beliefs about it. Okay, so I'm trying here to make you sort of understand what's going on here, okay? So here we have a little introduction about Sophocles, and please read that because it's a nice introduction about all those people who were writing about that time. And the beginnings, if you like, of how Sophocles really started to write. And of course, in addition to other writers, I'm saying to other really big names, in addition to, as I said, to Sophocles, as I said, we have Aeschylus, and we have Euripides, and Aristophanes, and Homer, and so many others, of course. But luckily, we are not really so keen about all those big names at the moment. But here we have a nice little introduction, really, for us to understand, and it's nice for you to look at it. Notice here the story again. I'm saying here the story is known by the audience, and I think this is the lovely thing about the play, because Sophocles knew that everybody else in his audience already they know the myth. Already they have an idea about the myth, okay? So here we have a little synopsis, a little summary of the idea. Here, as you can see, Oedipus the king. This tragedy, which deals with a man of high principles and probing intelligence, who follows the prompting of that intelligence to the final consequences, you can see it here, of the final consequence of true self-knowledge, which makes him put out his eyes, was as full of significance for Sophocles' contemporaries as it is for us. So notice here the idea about, self-knowledge. And I think this is the main idea in this play. It is self-knowledge, to know yourself, to really be careful and know yourself, to think, not to be jumpy and jump to conclusions in a crazy way. This is the idea. Really, the play is about that, is you have to use your brain. You have here something to use it. Really, that's the main thing. Later on, I will repeat that again and again. And this is really the idea here, is the true self-knowledge, okay? And here the irony and really the tragedy. You can see when you no more have eyes. What? You started to see when you have plucked out your eyes. Come on, doctor, what's this? Is this a conundrum? Is this a conundrum? Yeah, it is a conundrum. It is really a conundrum, which is like, something unbelievable. How can he see? How can he start to see when he lost his eyes? How? Yeah, Really, this is the idea, because at the end of the day, that's the play here. When Oedipus finally realized his mistake, he took out his eyes and he started to see the reality. Of course, it's of course metaphorical. It's in his brain, in his mind, in his terrible, absolute terrible act, which is, you know, killing his father and marrying his mother, which was an ugly, terrible thing. Unlike a modern dramatist, Sophocles used for his tragedy a story well known for the audience and as old as their own history. Yeah, this is what I'm saying. Sophocles is not telling something that people don't know. It is an old myth, and the people know it. And here Sophocles is, you know, rewriting it for his audience. Notice, a legend told by parent to child, handed down from generation to generation because of its implicit wealth of meaning, learned in childhood and rooted deep in the consciousness of every member of the community. Such a story the Greeks called a myth. Yeah, that's what I was saying to you, you know. The Greek, they call a myth. And really, this is the idea here, you know, I'm saying. And I think, you know, this is the best point that I started to tell you really here is about it, is to know that this is exactly something we have to sort of, you know, accept. So that's what he's, you know, saying here. They call it a myth. The use of it presented Sophocles, as it did Aeschylus in his trilogy, with material that, apart from its great inherent dramatic potential, already possessed the significance and authority that modern dramatists must create for themselves. It had the authority of history, for the history of ages that leave no records in myth. That is to say, the significant event of the past stripped of irrelevancies and imaginatively shaped by the oral tradition, you know, and so on. So the idea really to say here that the question of authority and to believe in history here is the question. And people think that myth, I mean, Greek people at that time, the people at that time, they believed that the myth or the question of myth or history has a lot of power, and they believe it, they accepted it, and so on. And I think you maybe can see this nicely done here. I really can't read all of this for you, but please read it on your own, because it's an important thing for us. Now, there is a little bit of here I have highlighted for you this section, which is again to talk about the main idea, the main question of what was called here, we say, really the question of the tragic hero, and why this play, why this tragedy is important for us to think of it as, you know, a tragic, or the meanings of the tragic hero in this play. It is a tragic play. It is a tragedy, and Oedipus is a tragic hero because he is a nobleman, because there is a lot of, you know, blood and people killed and people whatever. And also Oedipus fell from high to lower, down, when he plucked out his eyes and he no longer is the king. And he was kicked out of the town because he did what he did by killing his father and marrying his mother. Of course, at the beginning we think that he didn't know. Of course he didn't know. Yeah, he didn't know because of his ignorance. Later on we shall see and we shall discuss this, why he did it and how he did it. So here, in this little introduction, we have a little definition of what is called a tragic hero. And I told you this, I think, I don't know, maybe where is it? Is it to you or? Yeah, I think I did at the beginning here of this course. I gave you the difference between, or what is, I think I did last time, didn't I? Before the play, when we talked about no, Aristotle's definition of a tragic hero, correct? Ahmed.
No, doctor. Last class we have finished the previous play only.
No. I'm saying before I gave you the play. I talked about that.
Yes, doctor.
Yeah, of course.
Do you mean when you talk about the definitions at the beginning?
Yeah, I'm saying at the introduction of, when I started, before starting the first play, I gave you.
Okay, I think the previous class only. Yeah,
it's okay, no problem. But I think this is again the same idea, the same notion here. The same, let me see, the same notion here is repeated, as you can see. The relationship, let me read this for you. Aristotle, in his Poetics, written in the next century, developed the theory that pity and terror are aroused most effectively by the spectacle of a man who is not preeminent in virtue and justice, and yet, on the other hand, does not fall into misfortune through vice or depravity, but falls because of some mistake. One among the number of the highly renowned and prosperous, such as Oedipus. Here, the quotation by Sophocles and by Aristotle. And Aristotle, I mentioned to you what he called it, the tragic flaw. Here he says the mistake, a tragic flaw, or, a flaw means you have an error. There is an error, you have a problem, you have a mistake, you have something missing. You are not perfect. And here the mistake should, according to Aristotle, should be, from an important figure, a man, a king. I told you, king or prince, they should be noble men, from the nobility. And this is what we say here: not preeminent in virtue and in justice. And justice, meaning somebody who is absolutely virtuous and so on, but he has a funny, terrible thing which would cause him to die. Like what we say, for example, like what we say in Achilles' heel, like in Achilles' heel. I'm sure maybe if you have read, or if you ever read about Achilles by Homer in the Odysseus, or the Odyssey, when or the story, not just the Odyssey, but also the story of the Iliad, where Achilles, where the great hero was sort of like a god, but he has only one spot in his body where he could be, from where you could kill him, and it was in his heel. Do you know the story? Huh?
Yes, doctor. Yes, doctor. I think his mother, when he was an infant, she put him in something like a holy fire, but she caught him from his heel so he don't fall, to keep some part of him human.
Yeah, holy fire or maybe holy water.
I think one of them, the father or the mother, was a human.
No, the mother.
Something like
actually,
that.
The mother dipped him in holy water. And anyway, the whole thing is mythology. if you believe it. I don't believe it anyway. But, you know, this is the idea. Our friend here, as you can see, this is the old definition of done by Aristotle. As you can see here, somebody who falls from because of a mistake. We call it flaw or error. Other references to Aristotle, to this play, make it clear that this influential doctrine of the fall of the tragic hero, particularly on Sophocles' masterpiece, and it has been universally applied to the play. But the great influence and validity of the Aristotelian theory should not be allowed to obscure the fact that Sophocles' Oedipus, the king, is more highly organized and economical than Aristotle implies. The fact that the critics have defined or differed about the nature of Oedipus's mistake or frailty, you know, this is what we call frailty, or mistake, or error, or a problem, right? Here, his errors are many. Yeah, because Oedipus has not just one mistake. Oedipus had so many errors, so many mistakes, which really caused his fall. And that's why one of them, he does not use his mind enough. And I think this is a problem. This is a problem. You have to use your mind, for God's sake. Huh? Yeah. So, really, notice, we say here, the frailty include anger, impiety, and self-confidence. Anger, impiety, and self-confidence. I think these are the three big problems. If you have one of them, I think is enough to kill you, maybe. And that's what happens here, of course. Yeah. Impiety means you don't respect, you know, the question of God or gods. You know, as if you are impious means you are like maybe blasphemous. Could be like blasphemous, could be. And anger and self-confidence. If you are so self-confident, means you are arrogant. When you are arrogant and you don't believe or you don't think of anybody else, you think that you are right all the time, I think you have a problem. If you really believe that you are right all the time and what you think is correct all the time, I think you have a problem. You really must think about it. Absolutely. And Oedipus, that's his mistake. One of his terrible flaws, according to our really introduction here. And as we shall see, yeah, absolutely, that's his funny, strange thing. It's a clue to the real situation. Oedipus falls in not through some vicious mole of nature, or some particular fault, to use Hamlet's terms. And here again, I think this is, you know, he's the writer here in this introduction writing, or using Shakespeare in Hamlet, because this is Hamlet's language here. You know, saying vicious mole of nature or particular fault. But because he is a man, because he is the man he is, because of all aspects of his character, good and bad alike, and the development of the action through right through to the catastrophe shows us every aspect of his character at work in the process of self-revelation and self-destruction. So yeah, I mean, please read this and pay attention to this highlighted stuff here, which I said, yeah, because that's what happened. That's what happened, you know. According to Oedipus, he had this terrible problems, and he had so many bad, if you like, characteristics. And that's why later on this led, when he realized these, when he knew about these and he realized them, it was too late. It was too late. And that's what we say here, self-revelation, but yet at the same time, then it was self-destruction. When you know yourself, then that's too late here. And this is the idea that when he knew, he plucked out his eyes. He knew that he was the killer, and he knew that he was married to his mother. So he plucked out his eyes and he became blind man. Now he can see, but where is his eye? Where are the eyes? So this is the idea, and here this is really the absolute, if you like, contradiction, and like what we call maybe oxymoron. Really, this is the funny oxymoron, which is the self-contradictory statement. Blind and see. How can you see and you are blind? No eyes. This is really the situation here. And you can see here at the end of this, you can see that his impetuous proclamation of a curse on the murderer of Laius, an unnecessary step prompted by his civic zeal, makes his final situation worse than it need have been. So he himself was too cocky and too self-confident, and he thought he's going to punish the killer of Laius, the old king, who was his father, of course, but he didn't know at the moment. He made absolutely sure that he said, the person who killed Laius will be killed, will be cursed, blah, 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 blah. And of course, he was sentencing himself, but not knowing. That's why here we say the impetuous, the unbelievable, rapturous, or, sort of cocky and very sure of himself. A curse on the murderer. A curse? So he was cursing really himself. Indirectly later on, yeah, he was cursing himself. Yeah. Notice his anger at Tiresias forces a revelation that drives him on to accuse Creon. This in turn provokes Jocasta's revelations. So you can see, step by step how the play develops. You can see the whole thing is caused by him, because he was so much, cocky, as I said. He was like, cocky in his behavior, so arrogant and so snobbish and so, sure of himself, when we know, he was wrong, So that's why all these led to more and more examples of devastation, really, more examples of absolute shock and devastation to him, really. And here we can say about that, throughout the play, his confidence in the efficacy of his own action, his hopefulness as the situation darkens, and his passion for discovering the truth guide the steps of the investigation, that is to reveal the detective as the criminal. Yeah. To reveal, notice, the detective as the criminal. The person who is searching for the criminal, he is himself is the criminal. What a shame. What a horrible thing when you realize you are looking for the murderer, but you are the murderer. You are the murderer, which is really amazing. All aspects of his character, good and bad alike, are equally involved. It is no frailty or error that leads him to the terrible truth, but his total personality. Wow. So really, yeah, Oedipus had not, he had not just one frailty or one error or one flaw. Really, we say here that Oedipus was full of problems. His body was, compacted, if you like, with these horrible things. As you can see, total personality was full of all these terrible errors, as you can see there. Yeah, I think this is a lovely introduction. Please read this on your, the rest of this, because I think it's really lovely to read all that because it gives us an idea about the whole thing here. You can see at the end here, you can see again more and more idea. Notice the character of Oedipus as revealed in the play does something more than explain the present action. It also explains his past. In Oedipus's speeches and actions on stage, we can see that the man who, given the circumstances in which Oedipus was involved, would inevitably do just what Oedipus has done. Each action on stage shows us the mood in which he committed some action in the past. His anger or his angry death, if you like, sentence in Creon, reveals the man who killed Laius because of an insult on the highway and so on. You have the rest of the story, I think, is very nicely narrated here. Please read that if you like. I'm saying really you should read it all, because it gives you really a good idea. Again, here we see the question of the Sphinx. His intelligent, persistent search for the truth shows us the brain and the courage that involved the riddle of the Sphinx. The revelation of his character. Where are we? Yeah, the character in the play is at once a recreation of his past and an interpretation of the oracle that predicted his future. So I will leave all this for you to read and to understand, because really it's a nice introduction to the play. And here we start the play. As you can see, Oedipus the king, as you can see at the beginning there. I think if I can make it a little bit, maybe it'll not, I don't know how it's the zooming. Yeah, maybe a little bit, because yeah, you can see the page. I'm sure you have your books with you, correct? You have your texts with you, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, you can see here the beginning, the play, Oedipus the king. Now, many people say King Oedipus, no problem. I think both correct. Well, if you say King Oedipus or Oedipus the king, no problem. But officially, the title is called Oedipus the king. Now, you can see here the list of characters. We have Oedipus, the king of Thebes. The story is, as you know, is in the city of Thebes. In Arabic, we call it Tiba. Tiba, and we have so many places in Syria called Tiba. I don't know, but I mean, yeah, because the name, I don't know if you have any names here called Tiba in Oman. I don't know, but anyway. We have a priest of Zeus. As I said, Zeus, he's supposed to be the god of gods, Zeus. And remember, I mentioned the Zeus to you before in poetry. Do you remember? Basmala. Hello?
Yes, doctor.
Do you remember that I mentioned Zeus before?
I don't know because the internet is too bad and I haven't heard you.
I'm saying, do you remember that I mentioned Zeus to you before in poetry? Where? Do you remember? Zeus and his wife, Mnemosyne.
I think, Doctor, you said about him when we were discussing the story of the last Duchess. The poem, sorry, the poem of the last Duchess. I think. But you mentioned it before. We know. You mentioned it and you mentioned Olympia with it.
Sorry?
You mentioned Zeus and Olympia in one of the poems. You were setting an example, but I can't remember which one.
Yeah, anybody remembers? 3 marks. Huh? Well, there is a poem, I spoke about it for at least 5 minutes. Yeah? Boys?
I don't remember the exact poem, but I remember the phrase goddess while he describing his lover, and then you mentioned the goddess name.
Yeah, anybody?
You were talking about Evertiti.
Maybe my
in
last
that poem,
Duchess.
right? If I am not mistaken, right?
Again, what did you say?
I said you talked about Evertiti in that. You talked about different another goddess, the goddess of beauty in Norse mythology, I think. What her name was? Freya. You talked about Freya.
Huh?
Freya, the goddess
In
of beauty.
Sydney sonnet.
Sorry? Balqis, you said something.
Maybe in Sydney sonnet.
Yeah, Balqis, you are my girl. Balqis, you are my girl. In Sydney. And the muses, the 9 muses, the 9 muses, Erato, Mnemosyne, Calliope, Thalia, Erato. Do you remember the 9 sisters, the muses who helped Sydney to write his poetry? When she said to him, fool, look into your heart and write. Sydney, in the poem Astrophel and Stella. Thank you, Ya Balqis. You have 3 marks, Balqis. Very good. Yeah. Zeus, I said, these daughters, 9 daughters. Remember, I spoke about the 9 daughters, the 9 muses. And I told you they are the daughters of Zeus and Mnemosyne. 9 daughters for creation. You know, goddess of beauty, goddess of poetry, goddess of dance, goddess of science, goddess of blah, 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 blah. 9 goddesses. I spoke about that before to you. Huh? Yeah. I know you are so busy. You are so busy. You don't, I understand. You don't remember things. You don't have time. Yeah, well. Okay, so let's go back to real business here. We have the character called Creon, and he's the brother of Jocasta. We have a chorus of Theban citizens and their leader. And as we say in Greek mythology and in Greek drama, we have what we call the chorus, or a chorus, or chorus. And the chorus is a group of people, group of characters, either speaking all in one voice, or one would be speaking for them, one speaking on their behalf. So a chorus, and sometimes here in Arabic we use the same word, we say al-choral. We say al-choral or al-chorus. Really, in Arabic we don't have word for it. We use the same word, the chorus or al-choral, which is the same, really. And we have Tiresias, who is a blind prophet. Tiresias, he's a blind prophet. We have Jocasta, who's the queen, and she is the wife of Oedipus. And we have a messenger from Corinth. We have a shepherd, a messenger from the inside or from inside the palace. And we have Antigone, Ismene. They are the daughters of Oedipus and Jocasta. Antigone, and Ismene, and they are the daughters of Jocasta and Oedipus. And remember, these names later on, they are titles for more plays later on written by Sophocles and other writers. And we have guards and attendants, and we have priests of Thebes. Okay. Now, time here and scene, you can see the royal house of Thebes, double door dominate the facade. A stone's altar stands at the center of the stage. So this is the stage itself. As you know, this is the introduction telling us how the scene is set. And we say here the dominant double door dominate the facade. Really, we say here the word is the French word. We say facade. It's exactly like as if you're saying it in Arabic, facade, but it doesn't mean facade, really. Facade means the main side of the main entrance side of the building. Always call it the facade, and sometimes we call it in Arabic al-wajiha al-ra'isiyya for any building. We call it, or the face of the whole, like a big massive door, the main entrance of a thing. And they call it in French, I don't know where they use it in French, not in English. The English kept the French word. They say the facade. The facade, and pronounce it as facade, not facade or facade. Okay? This is how we pronounce it. It's the French way of pronunciation. Many years have passed since Oedipus solved the riddle of the Sphinx and ascended the throne of Thebes, and now a plague has struck the city. A procession of priests enters, suppliants broken and despondent. They carry branches wound in wool and lay them on the altar. The doors open, guards assemble. Oedipus comes forward, majestic, but for a telltale limp, and slowly views the condition of his people. Now, to be brief, really, I must tell you the story, to be brief, to know what happened. Really, the story of Oedipus is simple. His father and mother were told by one of the gods, Apollo, that his son, he is going to have a baby, and this baby is going to kill him and to marry his mother. So when the father was angry and he was really very careful, when he had this baby, he thought they are going to kill him because they don't want him to kill his father and to marry his mother, because this is terrible and horrible. How can anybody kill his father and marry his mother? So the father and mother decided to kill him. And then they said, well, why should we kill him? Why don't we send him to the mountains so the beasts and savage animals would eat him? We don't want to kill him. Let the animals, kill him. So they gave him to their shepherd. They gave him to the shepherd of the palace. And they told the shepherd to take it to the mountains, to throw it away there in the mountains, so it can be eaten by scavengers and by, wolves and dogs or whatever. So the shepherd took the boy, and then on the mountains, the boy, the shepherd felt sorry for the boy, and then he met the other shepherd from the other town, and he told him, you know, would you like to take this baby, because I don't want to kill this baby and throw it here away. And he said, oh yeah, of course I will take this baby. So the other shepherd from the other town, from the other kingdom, took the baby to the other kingdom and to his king and to his queen. And that king and that queen had no children. And he said to them, well, I found this baby in the mountains, and I think this baby, you know, you can have him as your child. The new king and queen were very happy to have a new baby, and they raised him as their son. When he became a young man, you know, he had a fight with somebody, and that boy told him that you are a bastard. You are not the son of your father. You are not the son of your father and mother. You are a bastard. You were found out like, you know, like, if you like what we say here, you know, somebody like who is illegitimate child, or like, you know, illegally thrown away as not wanted baby, if you like. So the man, Oedipus here, and they called him Oedipus. Why? Because the baby was tied to his feet, and his feet was like club feet. You know, we call club feet when your feet are flat, and they call this, you know, Oedipus, and this is the name from meaning the bottom of your foot is flat. So it's not really curved, if you like, because you know, our feet are shaped in such a way that, you know, it's healthier to have shaped foot, not flat foot. Anyway, Oedipus had flat foot, and that's why they called him Oedipus, because that's the meaning of the name. They gave him the name because of his feet, because his feet were tied down, because they wanted to throw the baby away in the mountain. Anyway, they said to him, no, you are our son, and you are our child, etc. But the boy started to think about it, and then he was worried. And then later on, he was thinking all the time. So he went up to Delphi, where the oracle is there, and, you know, he asked the Apollo, or one of the gods, if you like, or one of the prophets, and one of the prophets told him, yeah, you are the son who is destined by Apollo to kill your father and marry your mother, you wicked boy. So the boy was really terrified, and he went back and he said, wow, my God, I'm not going to kill my father and marry my mother. So he ran away from his father and mother, thinking that they are his real father and mother. Are you following, boys and girls?
Yes, doctor.
So he ran away, thinking that he's running away from his real father and real mother, but they are not his real father and real mother. And on his way, because he was going away to search for, or being angry and being upset and thinking that he's a prince, because he's supposed to be the son of a king and a queen. So he feels so proud of himself. And on his way, he met a carriage, a big carriage driven by horses, and he was on a narrow road, and the carriage wanted to pass, and he was in the middle of the road, and he stopped, and the carriage couldn't pass, and he had a fight with the people on this carriage. They told him to step aside. He said, I'm not going to step aside. I am a prince. I'm a king. You step aside. And they said to him, we can't, because we have a carriage like this, and the road is so narrow. You step aside. You're a man on your own. Step aside. Let's pass. And then he had a fight, and the man on the carriage, because there are about 6 men with this carriage, so they started fighting, and he killed them all. Only one man was able to run away, and to escape. So he killed everybody, including the man in the carriage, who is an older man, who is really his father. What a terrible man. He killed an old man who might be his father. He never thought that he should not kill an old man who might be his father. But you see, thinking that he ran away from his father. So he killed this man and killed everybody else. And then reaching the town, after a while reaching a town, and there was a sphinx. And this sphinx, which is half animal, half man, half animal, half a human, and this sphinx would not allow anybody to come to this city unless he should answer a riddle, a question. And this question asking, who or what is the thing that first walks on 2, then first walks on 4, then on 2, then on 3. And then, of course, I think it's easy, isn't it? Do you know? Basmala. Hello? First, who walks on 4, then on 2, then on 3?
Human.
Yeah, who is this again? Huh? Balqis again? Yeah. Yeah, very good.
Yes.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, it's easy. I mean, it's really very easy. And it's funny, you say, come on, this is a silly question, you know, a silly riddle. And Oedipus solved the riddle, and he was given the reward of solving the riddle, and he killed the Sphinx, because the Sphinx was devastating the town and was like a terrible curse on the whole town. So he sort of relieved the whole town from the Sphinx, and the reward to relieve the town from the Sphinx is to make him a king and to marry the queen. And he will say, oh wow, what a good thing, to marry a queen and become a king. So he immediately accepted that, and he married the queen. He never thought that this queen could be my mother. He never thought that, why, how, in what earth, in what, for what should you be given, you know, a queen? And why should they give you, you know, this power to become a king for nothing, you know? So King Oedipus was so arrogant, immediately said, yeah. So he became the king, and he married the queen, you know, Jocasta. And later on, of course, here the play starts after so many years. You know, nature and gods were very angry because there was something terrible happened in the city. The city was plagued by plagues, you know, more horrible things sent against the city, you know, worse than corona, you know, worse than anything you can find really here, as what we call here is the plague, at-ta'un. There was horrible plague where everybody is dying. And that's why here at the beginning of the play, people came to the king. He said, come on, king, help us. You came and helped us by getting rid of the Sphinx. Now we want you to help us to get rid of this plague. There's something terrible going on here. Please, we want you to help us. But it was many years later. And as you can see, the years passed. He had 2 children. Astaghfirullah, la ilaha illallah. 2 kids. Astaghfirullah, la ilaha illallah. Yeah. And of course, here at the beginning of the play, as you can see, notice, Oedipus, oh my children, the need of ancient Thebes, why are you here, huddling to my altar, praying before me, your branches wound in wool? Our city reeks with the smoke of burning incense, rings with cries for the healer and wailing for the dead. You know, Oedipus is speaking to the whole nation, everybody, because all the people came to his palace. They are praying for him and kneeling in front of him. And later on, I will show you this. I will show you this because I have the play. Oh, by the way, let me show you that in a minute. I will show you this in a minute. Let me show you. Just a second. Just a second. I think I lost the sharing. I will show you that in a minute. Let me come back. Oh no. Let me I wanted to see it on YouTube. You find it there. Let me see if I have it here. I think I used to have it. Where is it? I always thought I will. Yeah, let me wait, please. Wait for me. Don't go. Yeah, where is it? Um, right. I want to share with you this. I want to share with you this little. Uh, I don't know why it's not. Can you see anything?
Yes, doctor.
Oh, you see the film? I will send you the link. I'll put the link now on the chat. So please, you can watch it. Okay. This is the link. It's there in my chat or in the chat. You see, this is the link for the video, which is. Yeah, you see, please, please look and watch this movie, because it's a lovely, amazing, really representative of the play. And yeah, I will stop recording, but